The bitter rivalry between powerful family groups, the very same feud that had pushed the Maldives into signing the 1887 protection agreement with the British, did not fade with time. It carried on into the 20th century, looming over politics, shaping decisions and dominating the course of power for decades. By the late 1920s, Prime Minister Abdulmajid Ranabandari Legafanu's power had grown so vast that the Sultan Muhammad Shamsuddin III found himself surrounded by his shadows, isolated, powerless, and afraid that the throne might slip away from him altogether. By 1930, desperation pushed the Sultan to turn to the British for help. At the same time, people were talking about Crown Prince Hassan Izzuddin, questions about whether he was fit to take the throne. We've already gone deep into his story in an earlier episode, so if you want to know the deeds, make sure you go check that episode out. Then came the young reformers. They were the sons of Mali's elite, freshly returned from studies abroad, carrying bold ideas in their suitcases. They wanted change. The British were always on alert for opportunities. They took an interest in the Maldives during that period when the young reformers returned to Mali, and they offered their help in drafting a constitution. And so in March 1931, the acting British governor of Ceylon arrived in the Maldives. He met with the leading figures and scholars, then delivered his recommendations to the Sultan. He believed that the Maldives should be run by a council of ministers led by a prime minister. So, on the 19th of March 1931, the Sultan appointed a 12-member committee to draft the first constitution, quote-unquote, appropriate to the Maldives. It was to follow Islamic law, uphold tradition, and be easy for the people to live by. Around that time, Hassan Farid Didi, the son of the Prime Minister, returned to the Maldives. The committee was in session and the Sultan appointed both him and Muhammad Amin to join the committee. The biggest jolt in the process came when Prime Minister Abdulmajid Ranabandari Legafanu resigned. The committee debated for nights on end, finally deciding to accept his resignation. A public meeting was called at Gula Gula Faskandu, where people from all four wards of Male gathered to hear the news. With the crowd's approval, Al-Amir Muhammad Farid was named the new Prime Minister. His assistants were Hassan Farid, Galaluge Muhammad Didi, Ahmad Kamil Didi, and Falilatul Sheikh Hussain Salahuddin. Then came the 6th of December 1932, the day the constitution was proclaimed. The Sultan walked from his palace to Darubaruge, the council hall, on grand platforms joined by walkways. Falilatul Sheikh Hussain Salahuddin read the Khutbatul Arshi, which was the throne speech. And on the 22nd of December 1932, the Sultan ratified the first constitution of the Maldives, creating a constitutional monarchy. It clipped the wings of both the Sultan and the Prime Minister. New laws came thick and fast. Too fast. The citizens who were already unfamiliar with the written law grew frustrated. Customs they had lived by for generations were suddenly replaced by legal demands. Even the officials meant to defend the constitution began to criticize it. In truth, the very people who had once pushed for it now wanted it gone. See, back then, Abdulmajid Ranabandari Legafanu wanted the constitution to block Crown Prince Hassan Izzuddin from becoming king, and Sultan Shamsuddin III wanted it to weaken Abdulmajid Ranabandari Legafanu's own power. But when the constitution took effect, The most powerful posts went to Abdulmajid Ranapetiri Legafanu's sons, Muhammad Farid and Hassan Farid, and his nephew Muhammad Amin. Tensions rose further when Ahmad Kamil Didi proposed buying a new steamship. The motion passed despite Hassan Farid's strong opposition. Kamil Didi left to make the purchase, and with that the Bora merchants' resentment reached a boiling point. On the 9th of November 1933, after the dawn prayers, people gathered at Gulakule Faskandu. They were demanding to abolish the constitution. Only 10 months and 21 days had passed since it was ratified. They were demanding all ministers except Hassan Farid and Muhammad Amin to be exiled to various places. Muhammad Farid and Hassan Farid told the people who were gathered at the Gulakule Faskandu to go back home. But the crowd roared back, "We will not leave." Hassan Farid Didi became extremely angry, and in front of the Sultan he said that he couldn't run a government and the Maldives had become a rule without justice, Islam or law. So he wanted to be relieved from the 2 ministerial positions given to him, or otherwise he would resign on his own. Hassan Farid, who was so angry, tried to leave through a nearby door in the upper house, but some men in uniform came and pleaded with him not to do so. The Sultan himself was in distress and said that there was nothing he could do, that his words were not being heeded either. It was nearing noon. The Sultan was running out of options. Muhammad Farid personally handed over the constitution to the public. When the people gathered at Gulakule Faskandu toward the constitution, the first constitution of the Maldives was abolished. The constitution had been torn apart. 4 individuals went to the Gulakule Faskandu: Muhammad Farid, Hassan Farid, Muhammad Amin, and Kudaranapanderi Legefanu. And Muhammad Farid spoke to the crowd. He requested them to go back home. In any case, following the Sultan's evening announcement, everyone at the Gulakule Faskandu began to return to their homes. It looked like the people had forced the Sultan's hand. Ministers were rounded up and sent to Fatehus Salam, the first engine-powered boat brought to the Maldives. It was anchored outside the harbour as per the Sultan's order. The people taken to the boat were Prince Ibrahim Famuladerik Legafano, Ibrahim Rushdi, Hassan Salahuddin, Ibrahim Hassan Didi, Musa Ibrahim Didi, and Muhammad Ismail Didi. Later, under the cover of night, letters were signed for the boat to depart. The king didn't know until it was too late. Muhammad Amin told the palace after the fact, but the boat was already on its way. The exiles arrived in Ceylon under British supervision. Ahmad Kamil Didi, who was already in Ceylon on an official business, was denied to return to Male. The Maldives slipped back into its old monarchical ways. The dream of constitutional rule lay in pieces. The lesson was brutal. Without public education, trust, or true commitment from the leaders, modern governance was a fragile illusion. There had been no peace in the Maldives since the day the first constitution was torn apart. The country was in chaos. Even though Muhammad Farid carried the title of Prime Minister, the real power was in the hands of Al-Hajj Quli Isa Khalifan. He was a stubborn man and one of the richest people in the Maldives back then. He was generous when it came to politics, and his money could gather crowds whenever he wished. On his orders, people filled the streets demanding the return of Abdulmajid Ranabandari Kelegafano to take control of the country again, and a letter was sent to him in Egypt along with men to deliver the people's message. About a year and a half after the first constitution was announced, on the 5th of July 1934, a new one was put in place, based on the ideas of the first but changed in some ways. But trouble rose again. A group of ministers backed by Crown Prince Hassan Izzuddin began plotting to throw away the constitution altogether. The government moved quickly, arresting and banishing the ministers, but the Crown Prince stepped in, protecting certain palace officials who were part of the plot. This angered the people, so a crowd gathered outside the palace. The Sultan Muhammad Shamsuddin III, who had ruled for 33 years, and his son, the Crown Prince, came out to face the angry crowd. The Sultan's voice rang out, "Do you want your Sultan and Crown Prince or the Constitution?" The answer came loud and clear. "We want the Constitution." The people had spoken. The Sultan and the Crown Prince were arrested, put on trial, and found guilty of breaking the constitution. After Shamsuddin III was removed, Hassanuruddin was elected as the new Sultan, and under the advice of Abdulmajid Ranabandari Kelegafano, a new constitution was written. History has a way of circling back. The same names would return stronger and more determined, and one of them, Muhammad Amin Didi, would rise again, this time as the first president of the Maldives. We've already covered that ill-fated story in a previous episode, so if you haven't heard it, do go check it out. Until we are ready to unfold another tale beyond the sunny side, this is me, Tata, signing off. Bye-bye.